Welcome to Sunny Brands, the podcast that highlights the companies that make the world a better place. I'm Eleazar Ruiz, founder of Odd Notion, a branding agency and proud B Corp here in Portland, Oregon. And here are my co-hosts.
Hi, this is Rebecca, CEO and co-founder of the Impact Collective, also a certified B Corp in Portland, Oregon.
And I'm Sarah. I am the other co-founder of the Impact Collective.
So who are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about 818 Tequila, which is Kendall Jenner's tequila company.
Ooh.
Surprising.
I have to admit that I have a couple of times used 818 as the punchline when I talk to people about surprising brands that are B Corp certified. And I might be eating those words a little bit in the episode today because I'm actually kind of impressed.
Also, apologies. I called 818-808 sometimes in the episode, so apologies, my bad. It is 818.
808 is a delicious Hawaiian restaurant here in Portland that you should go to.
Let's dive in.
Today on this episode of Sunny Brands Podcast, we're going to be talking about 818 Tequila. So this is Kendall Jenner's tequila company. It was founded in 2021, became a B Corp in March of 2023. And this is going to be an interesting conversation. I'm really excited to hear what you guys think. I know I had some surprises. I had some preconceived notions going in and some surprises that came out. So, yeah. Rebecca?
Can I jump right in there?
Yeah.
This is great. What were your preconceived notions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think two things. Celebrity alcohol companies.
Yeah.
And I'm not ashamed to say I had some preconceived notions about Kendall Jenner.
Okay.
And specifically, like a celebrity alcohol company getting B Corp certified.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we have the experience of like, there are certain ways, like in B Corp, like you can throw money at some things in certification. And if you have enough money, then there are points that you can get. And I had this assumption that, that Kendall Jenner threw some money at this certification. And I don't know, that might still be true. But also, there's some good stuff there.
Okay.
And I also think a little bit of a scorching moment that maybe we'll get to is just alcohol companies being able to get B Corp certified. In general, I have some thoughts on. So,
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, I had similar thoughts. Exactly what Sarah said. Well, and there are B Corps that do it just for marketing, and Nespresso comes to mind. That's been a big thing in the B Corp space. We very much know Nespresso has not very their supply chain. There's a lot of issues with their supply chain, we'll put it that way. And yet they became B Corp certified. So I was worried this would be very similar, like they just did a lot of check the box kind of things. Mm-hmm. But I was also surprised, they actually back it up. And I've watched a little bit of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And
I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Kendall's one of the good ones, I think. So.
Okay. We got some fans.
So I'm like, if any of them was going to have a really good company, it would be that one. So I'm happy in that way.
Good.
She loves her horses, loves the planet, all those things, Yeah.
And that shows in her company.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. A lot about farming and regenerative agriculture. I'm jumping in, but
yeah, let's do it. Let's get to it. I have a few comments on the branding. Let's start stacking it up.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's get into
I really want to hear your thoughts, but we'll get to that. Okay, so just the how and the what. Obviously they make tequila, which is all about the agave plant, and I guess. From my research, I found that can actually be a really wasteful process. When you make the tequila from the agave, there's an agave waste product that the fiber, I guess, often gets wasted. And there's like a liquid byproduct.
Got it.
Some really cool thing that 818 is doing is they take those byproducts and they make bricks out of them, which are actually very adobe bricks. And they're actually very, they can actually be stronger than normal adobe bricks because of that fiber. And they're using them to build things in the community. And I'm like, it's a very circular kind of economy concept. So yeah, that's great. They have like this campaign. They had a campaign that was like buy a bottle, get a brick or something. But anyways, it's now they've partnered with, so they're 1% for the planet, which, we've talked about before, but 1% for the planet, meaning 1% of their revenue goes to a nonprofit that is focused on the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I love about their 1% for the planet is that they've partnered with one nonprofit. So in 1% for the planet, you can choose how you want to, which nonprofits you want to donate to. And I think it's used best when the company forms a real partnership with that nonprofit. And 818 actually is one of the best examples I've seen of that. So they partner with this nonprofit called Sacred, which is Saving Agave for Culture, Recreation, Education, and Development. Basically, it's a nonprofit local to Jalisco, Mexico, which is where they make the tequila. And they partnered with this nonprofit, and the nonprofit goes into the community and asks the community what they need. And they did that, and the community was like, we need a library. So 818 said, we're going to use these bricks to make a library. And I think they're in the process of that, or they might be done with it. And they've done a bunch of other projects. They also, one that I thought was super interesting was they rebuilt a local mezcal tasting room, which sounds like, what does that have to do with that? But it's because the community told them it's like a 5th generation tasting room.
Gotcha.
It was eroding from climate change. Like it was on a hill that was eroding. And the community said, this is important to us. And so they rebuilt it, which I think is such a cool, that's when in B Corp world, we talk about stakeholder capitalism, which is like taking all of your stakeholders, not just your shareholders, but everyone that you impact, taking their needs into account. And this is such a good example of like, they went to exactly the community that they're impacting and asked them what they needed, and then they delivered. So yeah, I was super surprised to see that. And I think it's a really, like, they're doing all the right things. And then just in their operations, they're super sustainable. Their distillery is powered by biomass and solar. Their packaging is really sustainable. Their labels, corks, and boxes are all certified by the Forest Stewardship Council, which means that it comes from sustainably managed forests. Those are the big things. And then, yeah, their B Corp. The B Corp, place where they got their highest amount of points was in supply chain poverty alleviation, which is an impact business model. And that just means that they pay like a premium with their supply chain, and they care about, they don't have a lot of information on what exactly they did to get that. But what that means is that their supply chain strategies reduce poverty through trade terms, positive labor conditions, and support for underserved suppliers. So, yeah, that's some of the big things I found. And like I said, pleasantly surprised. Go Kendall Jenner. Yes.
First thought, I'm thinking, like, she did not have to do any of this.
No, yeah.
She could, she's got the money, she's got the cred, she's got the following, the fans, all that.
Yeah.
She didn't have to do any of this. So I think what's admirable is that that's what she decided to do. There is this just side of me that is also like, we all have this, what's the word? When someone's like, not pessimism, but the other word?
Cynicism?
Cynicism. I have this cynicism.
Yeah, so do I. Don't worry.
That, just like, did you do it because you have such a spotlight that if you don't do it, it doesn't look great? Or did you do it because you actually care? And I'll give the benefit of the doubt and say...
Well, my question, does it matter? Right? Like, I think such a big thing about the impact world, social impact world, purpose-driven business is that, a company will always do what consumers want. So we have a lot of power as consumers.
Interesting.
Like, if we say we want to purchase with our values, we want to put our money towards our values, like whether the company is in it for the right reasons doesn't matter. I think that's a sign that the movement is building.
Yeah.
If they're doing it when it's not because they want to, that's actually like pretty cool.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, so I have a couple of thoughts, and one is that we talked about this in grad school a lot around greenwashing. I think about like, does the motive actually matter, right? Like, if the outcome is the same, if they're not lying about what they're doing, do we care about, you know, their feelings about it? I think I, as a person, care about their feelings. I know Rebecca cares about their feelings. But so oftentimes we start these episodes talking about the organization's why. And that's something that I didn't quite find with 818 Tequila. So on the site, it talks about the company was named 818 because of that's the area code for Calabasas, which I know you have thoughts on, and has nothing to do with the tequila. I'm not sure. But so it says, but the earth is home to all of us. So from the agaves we grow to the production of the bottles, sustainability and transparency of our supply chain. I can't read my own writing. We feel a great sense of responsibility and pride to have a positive impact on individuals, communities, and the environment. But I think sometimes what I'm searching for is, why tequila? What is the like personal experience that you had that led you to go, oh my gosh, the fulfillment of my purpose in life is to make a tequila company? You know, and we alluded to a scorching moment about alcohol companies being able to be B Corps. And, you know, for me as a recovering alcoholic, it's interesting to me to think like, how is alcohol somebody's why? But I do think digging into like the community aspect of, you know, of what she's doing now, what the company is doing now, that reveals a why to me. But it almost seems like a late stage why, which is it okay if it's a late stage why? I don't know.
Think about that often.
Yeah.
Well, it's a spectrum.
Indeed.
It's a spectrum. It's great if there's, you know, there's always going to be every company that makes every single thing possible, right? And because people like tequila and they want tequila. So if you're going to have a tequila company, let's make it run as sustainably and as socially impactful as possible, right? But they're not like solving any problems, right, through their business.
This episode is coming to you from the studios at Land, Portland's creative hub blending Latin American craftsmanship with Pacific Northwest design. Explore handmade rugs and homeware from Oaxaca and discover a space where art meets community with one of our hands-on workshops. Visit us in Old Town in Portland, Oregon, or online at land.org. That's LANDDD.org. And at land_org on Instagram. That's at LANDDD_org on Instagram. Land, where design tells a story.
What are your thoughts about, like, for example, my agency, should we work on alcoholic beverages? Should we work on tobacco? You know, both related, tobacco more than alcohol, but both really related to death.
Yeah.
Hot topic.
You tell me.
Yeah. Well,
so it depends what you're doing with them, I would say. You know,
like if we're doing branding, like creating branding for them, trying to understand, like, obviously, like figuring out the purpose of what they're doing, industry-wise, just opinion. What's your take on just the actual industry being used as a force for good?
I struggle with alcohol as a force for good, you know, and that's specifically because of my own personal experience, because I've seen alcohol destroy a lot of people's lives, almost destroyed mine, and I'm grateful that it didn't. But, you know, it's hard for me to connect with alcohol as a force for good. Although I will say, you know, I have like Hopworks here in Portland, incredible company, brewery. You know, they are an alcohol and restaurant company who's a B Corp, and I jive with their mission. I think that I know the founders, I think they're wonderful people. And I think that there's a lot of intentionality.
Yes.
I think this is a good topic that within the B impact assessment, that we've talked about the 5 sections that are in the assessment, but there is a 6th section that we haven't touched on, which is the disclosure questionnaire. So the disclosure questionnaire basically walks through controversial industries or practices that a company might be involved with, and saying yes on any of those questions it doesn't automatically disqualify you from being a B Corp, but it does require more information.
Gotcha.
And so alcohol is a controversial industry. And those disclosures are made public. And so 818 Tequila on their B Corp directory page, there are commitments that they're making about minimizing harm by working in a controversial industry. Mm-hmm. So again, there are steps that are being taken, and there is an acknowledgement of a potential conflict there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're really big on not allowing for underage drinking and stuff. So it's like because they're in this industry, they have to show that they do all these other things, which okay. I don't know. Actually, my biggest issue, it's not so much alcohol can't be a force for good. I guess this is kind of specific to B Corp, but they draw a hard, there's certain industries that they just say you can't get certified, like fossil fuels. And, but another one's marijuana. And I'm like, how do you make this moral stance? I know. Mm-hmm. How do you make this moral stance on marijuana but not alcohol? To me, that's like
interesting.
Yeah. And I get it. It's like, because it's not legal everywhere. I'm sure it's like that. But I actually asked them that. They did not give me a very good answer.
Well, there are state-by-state specifics for the legal requirement to get certified. So it could be a state-by-state commitment of like, where do you produce and sell, if it's legal in that state,
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I learned something today.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my biggest things about this world is, to me, the biggest impact you make is on your consumers or whoever's using your product or service. And alcohol, they kind of just ignore that piece. So it's hard I'll say they can never be a social enterprise. And to me, a social enterprise is a company that is formed, their whole purpose is to solve some kind of social or environmental problem. And I don't think an alcohol company, just by its nature, I don't think they could do that, So
Gotcha.
They could be a B Corp. You don't have to be a social enterprise to be a B Corp. You can operate as sustainably as possible, but they'll never be a social enterprise.
Right. And I think kind of to piggyback, kind of sidetrack, but piggyback to what you just said right there about you don't have to be a B Corp. I think one thing that I have a tension with B Corp certification in general is that it can seem inaccessible to smaller businesses. Mm-hmm. And I would say to a small business, you don't have to be certified to be purposeful. You don't need a pat on the back, though it's nice, to be a purpose-driven business. Yeah. And if it feels very inaccessible or you need the help or whatever, don't wait for the certification. I think my example, y'all's example was certification came because of the work that we were already doing, not because we started to do work after the certification. And so,
You also don't have to be a B Corp to access the B Corp framework. So if you go to app.bimpactassessment.net, you can create an account for free and you can go through the framework and you can access the questions. And I know a lot of organizations that do that might not even be planning on getting B Corp certified, because one of the biggest values is the framework for increased impact. And you can still access that to make decisions and to kind of gauge like where your company's at in your impact journey, that you can still access without paying the exorbitant fees.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Are y'all ready to jump into branding scorching moment?
Yes. Yeah. I'm wondering if I could make a couple quick comments before we jump into branding. Yeah. Because circling back a little bit, I do just have when we talk about like why 818 is doing all of these things. So I don't have a timeline for when these initiatives started, but I do know that early on in early on in the organization, there was some backlash around a specific branding campaign that felt culturally appropriative. That was, I think, Kendall Jenner in some Mexican heritage wear, riding a horse through an agave field. And so there was, I think. So, Jenner claims a passion for Mexican heritage and craftsmanship, and the messaging is primarily focused on environment, sustainability, all of that stuff. But the accusation of exploiting Mexican culture for profit, right? So I do think one of the things that I think is really smart that they've done, that's not a moral good or bad, it's just smart, is attaching themselves to existing organizations who are doing the work in the community. So rather than, I think they're doing a really good balance of celebrity marketing plus authentic sort of organizational affiliation. And so Sacred, the World Forestry Center, not World Forestry Center, that's here in Portland. Forest Stewardship Council, and the Venture Out project that they're also a part of, which is bringing the magic of the outdoors to the LGBTQ plus community. I think that that's a smart move because then they're attaching themselves to established organizations rather than just trying to just say no, we really do care about it. There's some credit there.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Branding moment?
Branding moment.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not so scorching.
Sizzling?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just not too bad. Just a little sizzle on. And again, this is just creative direction. So I'm gonna nerd out a little bit. Website, gorgeous. Photography, styling, the way things are edited. Instagram, chef's kiss. Everything is gorgeous. Everything's beautiful. I wish I could put my name on it. It's great. The only missed opportunity, I think they did a really good save. It's really on the story. So it's a quote, "We work closely with local family-owned farms in Jalisco, Mexico, to bring you the smoothest, most natural, and best tasting tequila possible. The area code 818 is home to me, Kendall Jenner, but the earth is the home to all of us." Nice save. Nice save.
Nice save.
Nice save. I just think it's a missed opportunity to really go hard on their purpose and what they're doing with the way that they're making the stuff. I almost would have loved for her to take a little, even a further backseat into the brand because people already gotta know it's Kendall Jenner's brand. So you don't even need to. And to me, the name of a brand is so centric that 808. I mean, your area code. I mean, you live in Calabasas. It's and then Mexico, Jalisco. It's just the story there. It doesn't really line up in all the beautiful ways that I would love for the story to line up to be this really compelling. This is great, award-winning tequila made in the most conscious, responsible way. This is why you should care. I almost don't want to hear about her. She doesn't need that, And so that's just a missed opportunity. Everything, logo and everything. The name is the only thing I was I could have gone without.
She's in the ivory tower. It's what a divide between literally supply chain poverty alleviation.
Yes.
And then she's in rich Calabasas. It's almost trying to throw that in your face a little bit.
It's I was gonna say sizzling, but I guess it's more of a scorching moment.
We can turn it up to scorching.
Yeah.
It gives you white savior vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
And just
that's and that's in the whole thing of when you're talking about brand story, when you read on the website, it just doesn't quite flow, right? Where it's 818 because I grew up in Calabasas. I'm super into Mexican culture and heritage, and I'm
I want to know.
I had a moment where I was is she Mexican? And I was I'm pretty sure she's not.
No. I want to know how it came across her desk. Someone must have said I have this great business opportunity. And then she saw the numbers and was like, how can I make this good also? Or I don't know. I would love to know that story.
Yeah. I'd also love to know the timeline, right? Because that is the thing that, and I love that this is the tie between like impact strategy, storytelling, brand, right? Because it does make me wonder, like if your whole impact story is about the communities in Mexico, you know, and all of this stuff, and then why is your brand like specifically about like your house where you live? Then it makes me think that it started at my house where I live, and then people were like, what's up with that? And then after that, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, let's think about the communities. The story, the impact story that it's telling me is that the impact was a little bit of an afterthought. And back to the conversation of does it matter, right? Does it matter?
Mm-hmm. So it was like, all a PR thing, basically.
Kind of. But does it matter?
I know.
Like the outcomes are still the outcomes and that stuff is still happening. So do we care?
Yeah.
I mean, I do because it's Kylie Jenner.
Sure.
I care.
I care.
You know, I'm glad PR works, I guess.
Yeah.
Actually shows the power if it is in backlash to that terrible photo shoot or whatever. Like, great, the power of the people. Like that's actually really cool.
Totally.
You know.
And I think in the ad she was wearing like a traditional poncho and there was like a specific type of hat and everybody was like, oh man. Yikes.
Did she have the Pepsi moment?
Yes.
Oh God.
Oh God. Didn't she have the Pepsi thing?
So, you know.
She's doing the best she can.
I guess it wasn't sizzling, it was scorching.
We love growth. We love growth.
Yeah. I love that everything's being backed up, it's being done, regardless of how it's being done. I'm sorry. I guess my bias is coming through. But I think, again, this just, I want to end this with an overall, like, what did we learn? What's our takeaways? Takeaways.
My biggest thing for the sunny side, partnerships. Like that really stood out. And like partnerships from people in the communities that you're operating in, you know, the people who have been there, listening to them first. I think that's what shines through and inspires me.
I think my biggest takeaway is how much storytelling matters and how much it matters from the beginning, right? And how much like thinking about what your intended impact is, the impact of your impacts and, you know, the communities you're going to work with and the collaborate. Like, you know, I know that you can't start a company with all of those things mapped out, but having placeholders or having like knowing that those are things that you need to figure out is super important from the beginning. And I also think my other big takeaway is if you have a why, make sure it's clear. You know, I'm still not sure what the why is. So
yeah, for me, going back to like again, the seat that I typically take in my work is creative direction, branding, and I think making sure that the story always kind of lines up as much as I can potentially make that happen. Sometimes the client just like, nah, this is what it's called. Work with it. And so for me, that was my learning piece. But I also like learned a lot from alcohol. Like, should that be a thing? So I loved y'all's input and all that. So I really appreciate your point of view.
Go Kendall.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, y'all. Thank you for joining us. You can get the episode show notes and transcript on our website, sunnybrandspodcast.com.
If you have ideas or suggestions about any companies you'd like for us to take a look at and dissect, you can drop us a line at hello@sunnybrandspodcast.com. And if you want to learn more about the Impact Collective and all of the things that we do to help companies live out their purpose, you can find more information at theimpactcollectivepdx.com.